Friends, and welcome to episode 87 of the Noclip podcast. I'm your host, Daniel O'Dwyer. I was going to say Daniel O'Spaniel or something, but I always worry that there might be, somebody's first time listening to the podcast, and they're like, Daniel, do I really want to commit to a podcast? Somebody called Daniel O'Spaniel. What do you think, Jeremy Jane?
I don't have a cool nickname. My only complaint is that I want a cool nickname if we're doing cool nicknames, and I need a few minutes to prepare that.
J-Dog,
yeah. J-Bones was one I went by for a while among friends.
J-Bones, yeah. Nice. That'd be a good porn name, I guess.
It was.
Frank Howley. Frank Howley, what's your porn name?
It would be, let's see.
Frank Holy.
Oh my gosh.
Dang Frank.
Spank Howley.
Oh man.
Wow. No, we're all coming up with names. He's just trying to get the perfect one. He's
just writing them down as fast.
Well,
my
immediate thought is I'd be the camera person, but then that's too real of an answer, and it's like, oh, okay.
But maybe you'd be like the camera person who gets involved.
No, I'm the producer. I'm the producer.
Do you think there's a whole like kink for camera people who like just watch those pornos where the camera person gets involved?
I bet there is. I bet
there
there's
must
like
be, right?
They circulate them on Pro Video Coalition forums and stuff.
Exactly. It's in the smut sub forum. Something like that. We're here for now on this beautiful episode of the Noclip podcast. All three of us residing in California, which is also known as the seventh layer of hell. If temperature is concerned, it hit 116 up here yesterday, which is 42 degrees centigrade. Or Celsius, I guess. Centigrade and Celsius are almost the exact same. I had to ask Siri what the difference was, and it's like 0.001%. Anyway, who cares?
Wait, those are two different things?
Yeah, they are. Apparently, centigrade was like a 19th century one, and then Celsius is kind of like slightly like tweaked, like science happened, and they were like, actually it's here, so that's where that is. So it's so when we're talking about like temperatures that involve like human life, there's like zero difference. But I think if you went into like talking about the melting point of certain things, of rock or something, maybe it would be out by a number or two.
Damn, that's pretty impressive that they almost got it right before science, and then they did science, and they were like, oh, we were pretty close, guys.
Just range found it and was like, it seems like it works. And I'm like, I guess we gotta change it because science. But you were right. We'll call it something else.
We got like an A-. I
feel like we nailed it early on when people started calling things hot or cold. Like that's all you need to know. Like that's all. I don't need anything beyond that. Is it hot? Yeah. Is it cold? Yeah.
It's a relative term though, right? Because like, what's cold to one person, Frank? If you grew up in. Where's your genealogy from? You're from like Scandinavia or Ireland?
Yeah, a combination of Ireland and Russia. So the Russia has like extremes, and then I don't know how cold it gets in Ireland. Does it?
Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't snow much at all. It snowed like once when I was a kid. Yeah, and like a really pathetic amount of snow. Like they shut the schools because the pipes might freeze, and there's like a quarter of an inch literally of snow, like just outrageously little snow, but we're just so badly equipped to deal with it. And everyone lives out in the countryside on the types of roads that you're only ever used to playing in like a Colin McRae game. So if there's any ice or snow at all, like just thousands die.
My school was so I grew up in New England, and my school was the one that never got canceled. So like there'd be a snow day for every other school, and we'd sit watching the news ticker at the bottom, and it would be in alphabetical order of like hundreds of schools, and mine would never come up. And we would have to go to school. Me and my brother would drive to school in like 4 feet of snow. And there was this hill. So previously on this podcast, I mentioned John Cena's giant mansion that was above the Merrimack River. So on the drive to school, there was a hill that descended towards the river and then a hard right. And so I swear to God, probably like 5 or 6 times during my childhood on the way to high school, me and my brother almost slid into the river and died at the foot of John Cena's future mansion site.
It's the importance of education, my friend.
Yeah.
You know, I mentioned the heat only to say that at any moment, any one of us, because we're all, I guess, you know, you're based down in I was about to say San Diego. Now you're in Orange County, Frank, and we're based in the North Bay here in California. At any moment, the power could go out, or the power to the internet company could go out. So we're on borrowed time here, but we got a lot of fun things to talk about. We're going to talk about Frank's time at PAX West. We're going to talk about Jeremy playing Immortality, and I also spent a good bit of time on Gloomwood yesterday, which went up on early access. So I'm going to talk about all that. But before we do that, if you would like to support this 100% ad-free podcast, fund our documentaries, and get access to a bunch of bonuses, including videos, bonus podcast episodes, Discord access, and I guess right now, access to that video game we've made that's up on Steam. We'll talk about that later. You can do so over at patreon.com/Noclip. And if you're an incredibly generous person who believes in our mission and you're one of our battle pass holders, you can get your name read out like this: Cody Krieger, Forrest Pruitt, Cameron Ladd. Do you see that tweet? Do you see that tweet that went around about Cameron?
Mm-mm.
Cameron Ladd. There's somebody did a montage of all the times I say Cameron.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
I can't help it. It's just, I think it's because lad is like a term in Ireland. Like, how you lad? What's going on, lad? You know what I mean? So I can't, like, it just unlocks this sort of Celtic energy that I clearly have like bottled up while I'm living.
It's like if I had to say someone's name that was like Patrick Dude every week.
Dude,
you know?
or
I'd really lean into
Yard.
Yeah. yeah. If John Harvard was one of the guys, it would be a real problem.
George Sakotis. I feel sorry for George because he comes after Cameron Ladd, so he doesn't have as much. You know, it's like, how do you follow up Cameron Ladd? Sorry, George. Jacob Godserve. It is. They're all amazing. There's not a normal last name in this list. Isn't that amazing? Like, sometimes I look at our patrons, and because we're such a global organization, it's kind of like looking at Formula One drivers' names, where you're just like, where did these names come from? You know, there's no John Smiths. It's Tohir Tiliev. You know what I mean? These beautiful names. So thank you all for putting up with our analysis of your names and your incredible patronage. Let's talk about PAX, first of all, because PAX happened. Frank went to PAX. Let's check in. First of all, Frank, do you have COVID-19?
No, but I should test myself as a safety. I have like 6 free tests. So yeah, I should test myself. But PAX, out of all conventions I went to this summer, was the most like secure with COVID stuff, like requiring masks, requiring bracelets or the wristbands. Most conventions I went to, they have COVID checks, and then once you're inside, like half the people take off their masks and no one's enforcing it. PAX enforcers were very strictly enforcing it, but hopefully as a result, less spreading. Out of all the conventions I went to this summer, PAX was the best. Jeff Keighley's done it again. The summer of Game Fest, the conclusion has been so amazing.
We're giving him credit for PAX now?
You know, he kicked off the summer of Game Fest, and that was the grand finale, was PAX.
He is doing this heat wave as well, though. And so we have to demote him a few points because of that.
Dude, oh my gosh, the final boss of Summer Games Fest is the heat wave. PAX was extraordinary. I'm still processing it. I'm still unpacking it. But it really was like one of the best weekends I've had, like, in such a long time. I didn't go to PAX last year because it feels like last year was still that first wave of returning of cons where not a lot of people were committing and not a lot of publishers were committing. So I heard last year's PAX was pretty small. It felt like this year's PAX, in terms of like publishers and everything, it felt like it was like 70 or 80% back to where things really were. In terms of major publishers, there was Sega, there was Nintendo, Namco Bandai. I never say that company right.
Nandai Bamco.
They had a massive booth. But the reason I love going to PAX, I think I've gone to PAX since 2007, 2008.
Wow.
The reason I love PAX is it really does feel like the like E3 of indie games, where like all of the indie publishers are there, so many indie developers are there. It feels like half the booths you can go up to, play a game, and immediately talk to the developer. So like I was in heaven. I spent 3 days nonstop going up and down every booth, geeking out, talking to people. I talked to so many developers. PAX opened with like the biggest shock for me is we got off the plane Thursday night, and because I applied as media, we got invites to a bunch of press events, and I got invited to this Last of Us 2 whiskey event, which was this
wow.
like this.
Are they making Last of Us 2 whiskey?
Yes, so they partnered up with a distiller who made this. I think it's called Wolf and Moth whiskey.
Okay.
And it was so they had free whiskey, free drinks, and the crazy
Free whiskey.
Oh,
my
yeah,
God.
oh yeah. And then the interesting thing is, I went with some friends who didn't drink, and so they're like, "Oh, you can have my drink tickets," which like I'm already hyper excited to be here. I had so many free drinks, and then as the night keeps going, they introduce Neil Druckmann and Troy Baker were there. Now, because I got to go in as media, I was very front row for this event. So
cool.
Neil Druckmann walks out, and he's like 5 feet in front of me, and I'm like shrinking because I'm like, oh my, like it's so surreal. I think, yeah. So, but anyways,
Did you touch his beard?
I did not. I did shake his hand.
Okay, that's probably more appropriate.
But yeah, it was a really intimate event where they celebrated Last of Us, they celebrated whiskey. A lot of Naughty Dog developers were there, so I got to talk to some people, and it was extraordinary. And I got to geek out with Neil Druckmann and praise, Last of Us and stuff like that. But that was really special. So that was
also you're like doing business, right? You can talk about this if you want.
Oh man, so yeah, so I went up to Neil, and I was like.
He's first name with him now, Jeremy.
Oh man.
Hey, he is during the
Troy and Neil.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Neil, the boys,
We're best
shooting
friends
some
now.
hoops.
Yeah. There's so many elements to this Last of Us 2 whiskey event. So one of the main things was they I almost called him Joel now. Troy Baker performed like a 30-minute acoustic guitar set, but in character as
cool.
Joel.
Oh wow.
Oh my
it,
God.
it was like a one-man show. So Troy comes up and he's like, I spent a lot of time in quarantine thinking about Joel, and I thought, what if Joel went out across the country drinking? I bet he'd get into some business. Well, I'm best friends with the devil. Oh, Joel's drinking
my
some and it was
God.
like, this is insane. I love this. So there was 30 minutes of this Joel one-man play. I love it. It was so ridiculous. And PlayStation, I think, or Naughty Dog, they're filming this event for something, but the whole time I still have my Taco Bell backpack on. So part of me is like, oh no, they're gonna have to blur or edit around this. Like everyone is dressed so respectfully, and here I am in my loud floral T-shirts and like Xbox hats or whatever.
Love it.
Anyways, so that was great. But yeah, afterwards I talked to Neil Druckmann, and I went up like, oh, I'm Frank, and then it eventually landed where I was like, oh yeah, I work for Noclip, and then Neil was like, oh yeah, I love Noclip. And it was like, so yeah, got to talk to Neil, and I don't know. It would be amazing if one day we can do something affiliated with Last of Us or Neil Druckmann. But the fact that they knew who we were, it was like phenomenal. So I hope stuff happes. But yeah, it was extremely sweet.
It's cool. I know you mentioned that they have a bunch of like stuff they filmed of, which I've heard as well from other people at Sony over a while, is that they've, we've sitting on this a bunch of stuff that we did, we recorded and we don't know what to do with it. So it was cool that he said that. And,
Yes.
Who knows? That it would be, I think like it would be cool to do a deep dive on both of those games. So many of those people have left though in the past couple of years too. So we'd have to chase some folks down, but. Yeah, we've never done. It's funny because we've done a bunch of stuff through Sony, but we've never done any Naughty Dog stuff at all. But yeah, that would be cool. It's on your doorstep as well, right, mate? It's basically
So I think Naughty Dog, they're based in like Santa Monica, so it's like an hour with no traffic, an hour with traffic. Who knows? But yeah,
doorstep is maybe a stretch.
But so that was like the opening day one itself of PAX. I got to travel around. I got to speak to so many developers, play a bunch of indie games. One of the craziest indie games was McDonald's had a booth there. They had a
wait. Was that a game?
So McDonald's had a booth and they had a crane game, and you needed the McDonald's app to play. They would like scan it, and then you could. Play a McDonald's crane game to get like socks or lanyards or jackets or just any other ridiculous items. So
what did you win? Did you win any? You're not wearing anything right now.
No, I did get McDonald's socks. So I'm so happy.
Nice.
So that's how PAX started.
He's loving it.
But in terms of games themselves, there's a lot of really cool things I saw. There was one game, it was the last game I saw at the show that I think Jeremy would extremely love. It's called Demon School. It's a It's a tactics RPG by Brandon.
It's Brandon Sheffield.
Yeah.
Joined. Awesome.
So that was another thing where I was like talking to Brandon, like, oh, I work for Noclip, and Brandon's like, oh yeah, you should tell Danny we should hang out. He's really close. And I was like, oh man, like
no, okay, yeah, so, like I feel if Brandon's listening, I'm so sorry. I've been trying to hang out with Brandon because he's like my neighbor in Oakland for like 3 fucking years, and I saw him before the pandemic happened, and then I was like gonna hang out with him like. And then on the day I had to cancel because I was COVID worry because my kid was starting in school and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, maybe this isn't a good time actually to meet up. So yeah, he lived down the road from me in Oakland. Now I'm in Nevada. So typically I'll probably hang out with him more now because I'm out here. They do an East Bay developer meetup as well,
Oh, cool.
which apparently is pretty cool. But yeah, Necrosoft, if people know it. An interesting story about Brandon actually is that he made a bunch of he made some games with a guy called Shane Marks. He made what was it called? Gun. I forget. It was a handheld game. I played it. Gun Tower. I forget, whatever it was.
Gunhouse?
He made a bunch of Gunhouse. Thank you, Gunhouse. He made this game with this guy called Shane Marks, who, out of complete happenstance, when I was in my last year of college, I decided to make a game in C#, and it was a platformer game based on my hometown, and I hurried it together, and it wasn't very good, and it wasn't working very well, and I needed to get it like in a workable condition so I could present it, even though it was like none of my lectures knew C# or knew anything about game design. It was a multimedia course. It was kind of a bit of a punt. I got a good degree out of it, so I got a good score, so it worked out. But a week before I was submitting it, I basically drove up to Carlow, where my friend Dale, who works in development now, was in college in games development in Carlow. It was like the second year they'd done it. And his roommate was this guy, Shane. And they basically fixed my game for me for like 3 days. So, and then I brought it back and got it. But he ended up working with Brandon. It was so weird. I met them at a GDC and I was like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, I haven't seen you since I was like 22 in this like small town in Ireland. And then he was in San Francisco working on a game with like a guy who was local to me. So it was like the only time I've ever had like a small world situation in games development. But yeah, Necrosoft, now they're working on the Demon School.
Yeah.
How does it play?
So it's a tactics RPG and it has extremely like clever writing. Like it's very like jokey but great. It deals with like demons and yakuza and your high school kids trying to solve ghost mysteries, and it's like, this is awesome. The graphical style is what pulled me in because it's inspired by like 70s Italian horror. So it's all like purple and blues and blood reds. It's gory, but the art is a combination. Brandon described it as like closest to a Saturn game where it's a combination of like 2D and 3D elements. So it's just like, it's gorgeous. The art style is so dope. And yeah, it's tactics RPG. And Brandon also said, like, as a tactics game, they wanted players to have the agency to like be able to do all their commands in the shortest amount of time possible. So if you move to a tile, it'll already assume you want to attack that monster. Like he said, like they worked really hard crafting his tactics RPG thing. As I was talking to Brandon, I had to say, like, I am so dumb with tactics. So it's like I'm so like such an idiot with it. But
it's a hard game to play on a show floor as well. I feel like a tactics RPG.
Yeah,
you know?
Brandon also said they had to tweak the difficulty after like the initial demo because like, oh, this is such a tough demo to get into, and they adjusted it. By the time I played it, it was awesome. But I know Jeremy would eat it up, and I'm eager to check it out. It comes out 2023. But yeah, Demon School was sick. I got to try System Shock. Oh my gosh. Oh
cool.
Nice.
Did you see our good friend Stephen Kick?
No,
was he there?
so I don't think he was there, but yeah, a representative from Night Dive was there, and it kind of talked me through the demo. It's filled with like Easter eggs, like. I'm pretty sure the first password in the game is 451. You know, like everything you would expect. But
it's not in Gloomwood. I tried.
There is a 451 thing in Gloomwood. Did you guys see this?
I haven't. And don't tell me. Don't tell me.
No. It's something they like were posting in a dev thing.
Is it the exploding thing?
Yeah.
So that I don't think that's real though.
Oh, okay. I thought they were really putting that in the game.
Do you want to explain what it is? Sorry.
Yeah, okay. There's in immersive sims, there's like a 0451 is like a password for a bunch of different things. I believe that started in System Shock.
Either that or Thief, I can't remember.
Yeah, it started in one like a Looking Glass game, used 0451 as a password, and it's like there's a reference to it in a bunch of immersive sims. So in Gloomwood, they did the opposite, and there's a safe that explodes if you try to open it with 451, which is very funny.
So I think it was like a joke during dev, and then that video I saw earlier, I think that was a guy who just either did a video edit or modded it.
Oh,
maybe?
I thought they were actually going to put it back in.
Because that's the first safe you find, and I put 451 in and it didn't explode. So
okay.
The only reason I think it's not real is that I tried it on that safe and it didn't work.
Awesome.
And I was like kind of bummed that it didn't work, but then the solution to that safe was actually really smart, so it worked out.
Nice.
Anyway, sorry, we're not talking about Gloomwood. My bad.
But yeah, System Shock played great. Again, that's another thing where the art style is like where it's like some stuff is kind of pixelated. Like they're not trying to make it look like a brand spanking new 3D game. It's kind of like an homage to the graphical style, but everything is oozing with like neon glow and like it looks pretty. It feels good. I can't wait to play it. There was another kind of cool old school game I discovered that's already available on Xbox Game Pass called Infernax, and this is a throwback to like Castlevania 2, Legend of Zelda 2, like side-scrolling pixel, but kind of in the way that The Messenger was done like years ago, where it's like it's a retro game, but it like plays modern and feels good. There's like XP progression, you can get upgrades. So it's like Castlevania 2, but it's extremely gory. So it's crazy seeing pixel art where monster. Yeah, the pixel art is insane.
I'm watching a trailer of it, and it's like it looks exactly like you said, a Castlevania 2 sort of like game, but then the cutscenes are wild and like the gore from these boss fights. This looks so nice. What did you play it on?
I played it on the show floor. I think they had it on Switch. At home I played on Xbox Game Pass. It's available, I think, everything. But yeah, it's basically like if they made an adaptation of Berserk in the style of a Castlevania game. Like it is just so gory and ridiculous. So that kicked ass. Funny enough, there was one game I tried on the show floor called Begone Beast, and they pitched it as Left 4 Dead meets Overcooked. So it's an isometric, like...
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
I can't even... The two Venn diagrams are like over here. I can't even explain this. Begone Beast.
Begone Beast. Left 4 Dead meets Overcooked. It has... it's such a so cute art style. Kind of reminds me of Jeremy's game dev looking stuff, where it's super cute, like creatures, but they're being chased by disgusting monsters and xenomorphs and aliens and like... And they said I don't even think they're on early access yet. They're in like pre like alpha at this stage, and they're based in LA. But yeah, it looks so fun. So I was playing the game, I was asking them questions, and then halfway through the dev was like, "Oh yeah, I listened to the Noclip podcast." And I was like, "What?"
Oh my god, that's amazing.
But seriously, Begone Beast. I'm like, we kind of talked about on the podcast like of adopting an early access game, and it's like, okay, I want to check this game out. Begone Beast looks really fun. I got to play Gungrave Gore, which is. A ridiculous, almost like I would compare it to like Devil May Cry. You play as like it feels like Metal Gear Rising. You play as like a badass who has a giant like machine gun and coffin and swords, and it's just like the most Platinum Games style game. You have a grappling hook. You can pull people in, rip them in half, or throw them at other people. Everything explodes. Like it feels like Ninja Gaiden, that type of game. But that just felt really great. But yeah, there was so many games I played at PAX, and it's like I'm still unpacking because I filmed so much. I filmed so many like interviews. Oh, one last nugget to highlight was Rift of the Necrodancer. So a spin-off of Crypt of the Necrodancer. I played that, and that game rules. I feel like Crypt of the Necrodancer was really, really brutal for me. It was hard. Rift of the Necrodancer is nicer because it feels like they're pulling from Guitar Hero, but also Rhythm Heaven, and it's very anime inspired. And that felt really nice to play. So yeah, like I can go on forever, but hopefully, there will be hopefully a Noclip crew video where I'll get my chance to spill my guts about PAX. But it was so much fun, and now it's like I want to go every year. I want to go to PAX East. I want to keep going. But yeah, the show was really nice. And it was friendly because I would interview people and talk to people, and everyone knew Noclip, and it was like, oh wow, like so I was also conscious at night where it was like, okay, I hope I didn't embarrass the company because I was running around gushing. But no, people were stoked. But So if you saw me there or listened, thank you. But yeah, it was fun running around with my camera and just filming everywhere.
Hell yeah.
One thing I liked with my discrete camera setup is it's just a tiny camera, but it has a nice microphone thing. It's like people don't really like know or care about me. I'm just walking up with my dinky camera. Okay, people are talking to me, and it's like, oh, I'm making like a big documentary thing. I'm making like a really crazy video. But yeah, I really enjoy PAX. If you're on the fence or haven't gone, it's even worth traveling to. But there's a PAX East. PAX South is no more, but I really recommend going out to PAX. It is like one of my favorite conventions. The other great side was just seeing all my friends, like many I haven't seen in quite a while. So it was fun getting also to hang out with Mega64, Cheap Ass Gamer, all the big dogs crew.
Excellent.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that's what I missed. That's what I was feeling when I was on Twitter during PAX. Was like, oh, it would have been fun to go. Maybe next time I'll feel like it. Thanks so much for reporting in on that. And yeah, we're gonna have a video up on Noclip Crew with Frank in his loud shirts and his Taco Bell backpack.
I can't wait to see that footage. I'm super,
me too. It's gonna be fun. We have a bunch of videos actually up on the various channels right now. The Rogue Legacy 2 documentary went up earlier this week. Awesome work on the edit, Jeremy. That was a fun project. I think all three of us were involved fairly deeply on that one. So go check that out if you want to watch 65 minutes of not just the design of the game, but also I feel like a game like Rogue Legacy people don't assume was like a difficult or like financially worrying thing. You know what I mean? You kind of think, oh, it's a sequel to like a slam dunk game that people loved. But I think the story behind that, and obviously how Full Metal Furies didn't make much money for them, and how this game really a lot was riding on it, not just financially, but also I think just in terms of their sort of emotional energy to make games if nobody liked this one as well. I think there was a lot of interesting stuff there. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, the the arc of their story as like kind of a redemption story, it's really interesting. The other thing I really love about this doc is that it's got a long kind of semi unbroken section talking to their lead artist, and it's just like showing a bunch of art assets. Showing there was a GIF that went around for a while during development or during early access that showed how their kind of fake 2D is 3D, but it's all kind of warped and mangled to create the illusion of 2D. And so the artist that we interviewed, that Danny interviewed, basically just opens up a bunch of stuff and shows us how it works. And yeah, I don't know. That was like one of my favorite sections in any doc we've ever done. It just felt very like candid. Like it just felt like being in his studio, like he was your friend who's working on a project and he's like, oh, before we like go get lunch, can I show you some of this cool stuff? Yeah, I don't know. The Rogue Legacy 2 doc is really cool. People should check it out.
We should do more of that. When it was happening, I was kind of like, oh, I should ask people to do this more, especially because remote, everyone's computer now, they have set up to share their screen if they're in a remote development situation. You know what I mean? Like they have to share their work. So it wasn't that hard to put together.
That also, this just occurred to me, but we talk a lot about how music is a difficult thing to talk about with people who do music for games and stuff, just because it's inherently kind of intangible. Like you can't be like, well, what was your thought on that melody? And then you play the like boop, boop, boop,
right.
boop, and then, you know, so it might be interesting to get people to bring up like, either like work in progress versions or like solo tracks for us or something.
Yeah.
If we do
Break it
remote
down.
interviews. Yeah.
Like layer it or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like if there's like a particular layer that's interesting or something, maybe break it down like that. I have never thought about that in those terms, but that might be cool.
And not the only video that went up this week. We also have the first video on our video game Stunt Derby, as it's known now. Although people keep saying we should rename it back to Drive 95 in the comments, which is exactly what I wanted to hear, really. Was like, let's rebrand this game a third time. Yes, we're making a video game with Alex Austin, the creator of games like Sub Rosa, and he programmed Gish and loads of other cool bits and bobs. Bridge Builder back in the day. We did a documentary about Gish years ago, and Alex was involved in that. And yeah, we're sort of partnering with him on this project where he's making a game. It's a stunt car racing game. We've been doing secret playtests with patrons for a while now. And the idea of the show is basically to use it as a Trojan horse to make videos about sort of aspects of video game marketing and business that we don't often get to talk about. Stuff like, you know, what it's like signing a deal with a publisher, or what's it like doing play tests or doing mock reviews or doing trailers, that type of thing. We've got some really interesting concepts for upcoming videos. We are going to be releasing this game and selling this game and doing it in early access as part of it. It's kind of like a gonzo docu-series where it's half about our game, and half about the sort of wider conversation of games that exists around it, because our development is not typical, I would say, because we're kind of, the game is an excuse to talk about this stuff. And yeah, we got some interesting episodes coming up. We're going to be doing our early access launch. I have time with Derek Liu, the famous game trailer maker. This week, he's going to basically give me a sort of a 101 on how to make a video game trailer. And then I'm going to go make a trailer, and then I'm going to talk to him afterwards and pitch the trailer to him. He can tell me how bad it is.
Awesome. That's so cool.
So that's kind of like a video editing one as well, which should be quite fun. We're going to do stuff on publishing. We're going to see if we can have a conversation with a publisher about pitching it. We're also going to talk to other developers about sort of the wider culture of publishers, like the deals that go bad, the early deals they wish they hadn't done, the way in which publishers try and, the good ones to work with maybe, and the ones that aren't so favorable. Maybe some of this stuff we'll do kind of anonymously as well. But yeah, it's going to be a real sort of interesting ride on this project to, showcase it and also see what it's like releasing a game and how stressful that is. Yeah, and the whole idea is that like it'll be cool, to make a game that Alex gets to work on for a long period of time and hopefully brings in some cash for him, and then on our end to see if we can like recoup on the initial investment is kind of my my goal for that one as we go week by week or month by month on it. So yeah, check it out. It's over on youtube.com/noclipcrew video. Type Noclip Crew into YouTube. You can watch that along with episodes of Developer Breakdown, Jane Dev, and loads of other bits and bobs. let's talk about Immortality. I'll do Gloomwood last. Jeremy, Immortality. It's the Her Story guy, right? This
It is
one,
Sam Barlow, the creator
Sam
of Her Story.
Barlow.
Also the creator of a game called Telling Lies, which he did
Yes.
after Her Story. Much more of a mixed reception on that one. I don't know that much about Telling Lies. He also worked on two Silent Hill games that were referred to on Wikipedia as the British Silent Hills, which I can only imagine is like you've had 14 pints and the kebab place is closed.
you have to walk home through a bunch of Silent Hills.
Yeah, exactly.
So this game, it sounds like at the moment it's I feels like these games are divisive. People either are it sounds like sort of a who's the guy, like a Darren Aronofsky situation maybe, where some people really vibe with the creator on this and other people are like, fuck, another one of those.
So Immortality is, I think it is a divisive game because I think that some people just like, I think if you don't like this game, I think maybe it's not for you, but also maybe you're kind of like misunderstanding the tone of it, because it's a game where you're kind of poking through these 3 movie projects worked on by this actress, and you're like going through the footage, and the movies themselves are very like kind of like schlocky, like they're pastiche. And so
Right.
I think that if you're watching that and you're kind of like, oh, why am I watching like these 3 bad movies? I could see how people would be like, well, why wouldn't they make like 3 good movies for me to poke through?
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. I just think that like, I think if you appreciate them as like weird pastiche, because they're very like kind of David Lynchy in tone, they're bizarre, they're like over the top. Yeah, I don't know. I really appreciate that stuff, and I think that like it's a real love letter to cinema the way that they do it. And so like I was constantly pausing and going like, oh, that's like a nod to like Ingmar Bergman, that's like a nod to David Lynch, that's like a nod to so and so. And so I don't know if this is like I don't think it's just a game for cinephiles or anything. I think you could enjoy it without that layer of it, but I think that definitely added something for me. Also, it's like it's a game where you're scrubbing through video constantly, and it's very funny to do as a video editor.
So I wanted to ask you about this because I could not play Her Story. And I think it was because as I was playing it, I was sitting at my desk and there was video and my brain just could not make this feel like work. I was like, I can't. I've tried to start that game like 3 times and every time I've been like, I'm just bummed out, man. I just like if I'm here, I should go edit something. So, and it's one of those intangible things where like, I wish I could, but like, I can't. So, what's that been like? You know, considering your normal way of sitting at computers.
It was kind of like I played the whole thing yesterday. It was kind of like the best day of work in a while. No, it's like it is.
Didn't get paid though. Well, I don't know, maybe. I'll see your invoice.
These hours won't end up on there. It is like. So there is part of that you're just scrubbing through footage, and that it is kind of funny as a video editor to have that moment. But also because it feels very different because you're digging for. Well, I was gonna say you're digging for like clues and stuff, but that's honestly what you do as a documentary filmmaker anyway. You're digging for like connective tissue. So honestly, this is just like a simulation of being a video editor, kind of. But the gist of the game is essentially you're digging through these 3 movies, and obviously I won't spoil anything at all because I want people to actually play this game. But you're digging through not only 3 movies, but the sort of behind the scenes footage from the making of these movies. And piecing together kind of a mystery. But the game is very like a light touch. Like when you start, it doesn't, there's no like, oh, here's the mystery you're trying to solve and here's how you're like going to do it. It kind of just gives you all this footage and lets you dive in. And then the main way of interacting with the footage is you can pause it at any moment, you can scrub back and forward, and you can there's an eye icon that you can click and then click on anything on the frame. And so they call it a match cut, and that's kind of the main mechanic is if there's like a coffee mug on the desk and you pause and you're like, what was that coffee mug? I recognize that from that other scene. You click it, it'll like zoom in, and then it'll go to another shot where there's like a cup or a mug or something, and then it'll pull out and show you a new shot, and that's how you like unlock new footage. But yeah, so I played the entire thing yesterday. It's fucking.
How long did it take?
It's more than 6, less than 7. I kind of took a few breaks and left it running, so I think my runtime right now is like 7. But it's like probably a 6-hour game. But it's like I don't know. I think it's fucking brilliant. This is definitely one of my games of the year.
Okay.
I had a fantastic time. It's also like, so this ties into the other game I played this week, which was the demo for a little indie detective mystery game called The Case of the Golden Idol. Which is a game where it's like these pixel art dioramas and you're just clicking through them for clues. And essentially the way you're solving the clues in that is it gives you all the names of all the people and you're like plugging them into context. So it'll say like blank blank did blank blank to blank blank at blank blank because blank blank. And then it gives you, as you find clues, it gives you words where it's like candle, dagger, like this, that, John Smith, Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio's not in the game. And you have to like fill it out. But one of the things I really liked about Case of the Golden Idol is that it's so like, it's just open-ended. Like, it's just giving you this mystery, and it's letting you collect all the pieces and then plug them in. And, I mean, we've talked about this a lot as a game design thing on this podcast, that it's really difficult to do detective games or mystery games because at the end of the day, you're either giving a player, like, a totally open-ended input on one end where it's just, like, a text field you type into, and that's a really difficult thing to do. That feels very old school to people, and a lot of people don't really like that. And then the other end, the other extreme of that spectrum is, like, you know, you talk to someone and they're like, was it Joe, John, or Susie?
Right.
And then that's kind of like has its own kind of inherent flaw because then it's implying that one of those three is the answer.
Yeah.
So if you don't know the answer, that might tip you off to it. So Golden Idol does a kind of clever middle ground where it gives you all the pieces, but some of them are irrelevant. Like you might never, you know, like John the Fiddler might have no relation to this case. His name
John the Fiddler.
Yeah.
John the Fiddler was definitely the guy who fiddled all those people. Absolutely. You kidding me?
John the Diddler, more like it. So anyway, all that is to say that like I played 2 mystery games this week, and I thought they were both incredibly innovative and clever and different in the way that they approach this. But the thing that I love about Immortality is that it feels like it has confidence in its own narrative world building. It feels like a game where it lets you start anywhere. It lets you like just dive in and start clicking around, clicking on people's faces and objects in the scene and stuff, and just it like, because it's so non-linear, I think it would be easy to make a game like this that you play the quote-unquote wrong way and you don't resonate with it because you're like, why the fuck do I care about this? Like, who are these people? What's the story? Like, what's the mystery? Because the game is such a light touch and is so open-ended and so kind of like letting you craft your own experience, I think it lives or dies by the player's ability to engage with the material and to become kind of absorbed in the material. And so for me, that really worked because I really, like, when I play a mystery game, I want to feel like a detective. And I think the only way to make the player feel smart is to, within certain bounds, give them the opportunity to feel stupid. I think giving me the tools to collect all of this information and assemble it in my head is the way that a detective mystery game should go. But it's difficult because, like, I mean, I had a notebook out with a pen, and I think that's kind of like the only way to play a game like this is to. I mean, there are solutions.
It's a bit of an Obra Dinn.
Yeah, exactly. And there are games that do, you know, like Outer Wilds has its like pin board of the clues and stuff to kind of like lead you down the trail and refresh your memory if you pause and resume another time. But this is just a game where you just watch a fucking ton of video. It's like 26 gigabytes, the game.
Oh my God. Okay.
Probably because it's like 6 hours of watching movies and behind the scenes and stuff. But I cannot recommend it enough. It's one of my games of the year. Huge fucking giant red content warning if you're sensitive to anything. This is a fucked up game.
This is okay. Okay, I'm gonna give it a go. I think you've sold me on it. I'm gonna dip my toes into the murky waters of Immortality. It's $19.99 on Steam right now. And what was the other one you mentioned? It's the case
of the Golden Idol, which is not out yet.
Free demo on Steam right now. It looks really sharp. I've never seen this one either. So.
Very, very cool. Kind of reminiscent art style of like the old Monkey Island art, like a crunchy kind of dithery pixel art. There's kind of like the first 3 missions in Case of the Golden Idol are free to play. Took me about like 45 minutes or something. So give that a go. Give Immortality a go, and put your notebook on the table and get a pen out and put your critical thinking cap on.
give it a go. I'm trying to remember what the case of the Golden Idol. I hear what you're saying about the Monkey Island, that sort of dithered, pixely look, but it's so much more like sharp, like detailed in a way that Monkey Island wasn't. I'm trying to remember. There is a game that this reminds me of, and it's like doing my head in. But the color scheme is really cool. Like I'm really into
Golden
it.
Idol is like
Looks neat.
incredibly cool. I was shocked I hadn't seen more people talking about it. I mean, it's like a tiny indie mystery game, so that's kind of inherently not everyone's cup of tea or whatever. But it's fantastic. It has incredible atmosphere for a game that's essentially just a bunch of like pixel art dioramas that you click on. It's a diorama. When I said diorama, I felt like I was from the Midwest.
Do you know what it reminds me of?
What
was the game Jesse played? The card game, Card Shark.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like that type of detail. Maybe a bit more pixely though, like you were saying.
Yeah. And then the only other thing to say about Immortality is that I think that the other thing I was thinking the entire time is that it is like, because it is all actors you don't recognize, I was constantly finding myself super immersed and then pulling back and being like, oh yeah, like it's the same feeling when you watch a movie that's like an old movie or like an indie movie or like a weird B movie or something where you don't recognize any of the actors and you get way more immersed because you're not like constantly going like, oh, Brad Pitt's pretty good in this. It's not that they're non-actors, it's just that they're actors I didn't recognize. And the other interesting thing about that is that they're actors playing actors, because not every piece of footage you're watching is like them in character. Sometimes it's them in character as the actors. And so there's like all of these kind of like veils of like identity that are being like pushed and pulled. It's so fucking fascinating.
Cool. Immortality. Pick it up now if you're interested, and if you're not, well, Jeremy will have a second opportunity to pitch it when we do our Game of the Year conversations.
It'll be there
later this year. So I played Gloomwood, which went up on early access on Steam September 5th. We covered it in the past when the demo was out. I feel like this time last year. I also interviewed Dylan Rogers for the Thief episode of Greatest Hits, but we did not use any of the interview, so I don't think anyone's ever seen any of that. It's gotten over 1,000 overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam as of recording, which is pretty good. And I have played, I don't know how long, maybe 3 hours. I have beaten the first 2 levels that are in it. I don't know how long it is. Ask me anything about Gloomwood. What are your questions about this immersive, I don't know what you call it. It's a throwback to like Thief in lots of ways, but it's also pulling from it's not a Thief game in many ways as well. Not so combat heavy.
Go ahead, Frank.
My question is, I played a little bit, but I got so scared because you can't save. Like, you can't save scrub. There's like checkpoints you have to save at, and I died and was like, oh crap, I have to like actually be stealth. I can't hack and slash. Your experience in those 2 levels, did you die off? Were you stealthy? How's like the difficulty on the base level so far?
So yeah, the saving in this game is definitely going to be one of the biggest push or pulls. The way it works is that there are these gramophones, I guess, which is kind of cool because it means you hear them every now and again. And you have to find these, and you can go up and hit the button, and it'll basically quick save. There's only one save, I think. There's no quick save button. There's no save thing outside of that. So the way it works is kind of like, it kind of feels like Soulsy in a way. I don't like bringing it up all the fucking time, but there's 2 reasons it does. One, you're kind of waiting to find the next one of these gramophones a lot. And 2, the levels tend to create shortcuts that bring you back to the gramophone you just found. So there is a very obvious Soulsborne inspired, here's a gramophone room and there's a locked door right there. And then eventually you find your way around and you go back to that gramophone. And so you have access to not just the area you were in, but also the original sort of area, which is good because the sort of way this game works mostly is that it's about puzzles. There is combat in it. It's very stealth focused. You have a ring, which works like the Thief jewel at the bottom that lets you know how dark you are. You have a like what is it, like a rapier or something, like a sword that you can use to like stab people. If you get them in one go without them knowing, they go down straight away. If you don't, the fights tend to take off a lot of your health. There's not that many health pickups in the game, so you have to be really careful not to sort of get yourself in a nasty save situation where you don't have that much health, but you have to do a bunch of stuff. And then, there is a gun in it, but you find very limited amounts of ammo. It's like a revolver. I think there's like a 6-shooter or something, and if you hold down R instead of reloading, it'll just pop it open so you can see how many rounds you have, which I think is pretty cool. So yeah, the saving is the thing that I have my experience of Gloomwood so far has been playing it, enjoying it, dying because I didn't get to a thing on purpose, having to replay this entire section, dying again, getting frustrated, turning the game off, and then 5 minutes later going back in because I wish I was playing more Gloomwood. So I think there's a push and pull here. There might be some people where it's just too annoying. There might be some people who never seem to care either way. There are multiple difficulty levels as well in terms of how this sort of stuff plays out. But I think at the end of the day, I have been going back to it. It's very Thief. And I want to say that not in terms of gameplay necessarily. There are some obvious inspirations. There are metal floors that if you walk on them, you are clank, clank. It's very audio focused. There's loads of really cool touches. There's one thing where you can, if you lean against a door, you can hear the other side of the door. So it like gives you like a muffled sort of sound of what's going on, so you can hear if people are walking past and stuff like that. It's kind of their version of peeking through the keyhole in Thief. The obviously the aesthetics of the game are very Thief Gold inspired. I would also say the sort of mixture of, I don't know, it's not Victorian era, but just like old world mixed with mysticism. Like there's that in there as well. Like in the second level, you're in these mines and there are these dogs going around. And you use, like, against the humans, you use bottles to, like, distract them. You throw a bottle and then, they'll walk over and you can come up and stab them. The baddies have cones for eyes that literally shine green when they're looking, orange. So green when they're normal, orange when they are suspicious, and red when they see you. So it's like, it's pretty on the nose. But the whole thing works really well. And sorry, what I was going to say was the dogs, for instance, they don't react to sound. Well, maybe they do, but they mostly react to the smell of food. So you can throw, like, they'll smell you first of all if there's nothing else. They'll smell an apple if you throw it, but you can go around picking up like villagers' heads and just like throwing them so the dogs go and eat those. So good opening question, because basically it's the biggest sort of like question mark over the whole thing, but it hasn't stopped me from going back, and I think that works a long way. It's designed within an inch of its life, which is something I know I say a lot, but it's like you can feel the design in every level. You can see what they're trying to do. Oh, they're trying to teach me here this here, and this is an interesting, you can just tell that each level has been crafted like very well in the way that those old 90s first-person shooters were, or first-person games. So I'm enjoying it from that perspective too.
In terms of the levels from level 1 to level 2, do you keep your inventory, or is it a fresh slate every mission?
You keep your inventory. It's very much like a more standard first-person shooter. It's very much this whole game will play out in one day probably. The actual I think as much as Thief is definitely like a mechanical inspiration and tonally to a certain extent, and definitely in terms of how it looks and the presentation, the game that it's reminding me the most is Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth, which have either of you played?
No, heard of it though.
No. So yeah, it is a 90s first-person game, maybe early 2000s actually, where you turn up in whatever the village near where you grew up, Innsmouth. Is that,
yeah.
Yes.
Newburyport, Massachusetts.
Right. So you're in Innsmouth, and the mechanics of the game are mostly stealth and running. So your character can get panic, and you have to close doors behind yourself and push bookcases over and stuff like that. And there's not so much of that necessarily, but there's a lot of that type of thing where you are basically, I should not be here. And for whatever reason, the objective of the game is to go deeper into the heart of darkness. So I'm on the third level now, and it's basically like you can see the village and you're going in, and it's like, it feels very oppressive and like scary. And when you meet people, like killing them is difficult, but the biggest problem is you just can't kill that many of them. So you're trying not to get into some fights, or you're trying to stab people, in a way that doesn't take any health or ammunition from you, because you don't know how many people are between you and the next gramophone. So I like it. I think it took me, I'm liking it the more I'm playing it, put it that way. Once I'm learning a lot of the mechanics, and even so, like the first two levels are so mechanically different from each other. The first one is very much like, stealth and walking around a building. The second one, and it just layers in a lot. It layers in a lot of verticality, which is really cool. It layers in a lot of there's water in it, and there's like using objects to get into different areas, and there's some neat. The story is light, but it's compelling. You find notes around the place. Yeah, it's a good time. Any other lingering questions about Gloomwood?
No, that answers my questions. I'm really excited to play it. I've been following it pretty closely for a while, and I played the demo a long time ago, but from the looks of it, this is like a quantum leap beyond the demo.
Yeah, the demo, it's funny, I was remembering the demo when I was playing it, and the demo felt very, like, I was playing the first level of this and being like, oh, I guess you couldn't put this out as a demo, because a demo, you kind of need people to kind of know how to play the game pretty quick so they can just go play the game. And what's interesting and compelling about what I've played so far of this is that it's actually a lot of like teaching you and onboarding, or like testing you, actually. I'd say more so testing you in what you're doing. And yeah, I think there's a lot going on that I don't realize that I'm enjoying. Like, I think the sound design is particularly smart. Like the footsteps, the echoing around, you know, the way like we did that documentary on Thief, and they talked so much about the, like, people didn't realize all the audio tech that was going on behind the background. Like, people talk about how the audio in that game was good, but they don't actually realize that we were doing like all this crazy spatial stuff that like modern games do not do. You know what I mean? And I feel like in this, there's a lot of cool things like that. The guards also like totally do the Thief thing of like, I see something over there. Oh, you know, must have been nothing, or I must have been, you know, I forget the line they say, but it's like, oh, I must have been wrong, or something like that. And it's not quite the, what was that of Thief. But the voices are so good. They're really creepy. Like when they kill you, I forget what they say, Frank. There's like some line they say when you die, and it's so sinister. It's like, it's kind of like you thought you were going to get away or something. It's so like, oh God, these guys are mean. Like, they're freaky.
One thing I loved, like as somebody who had played like the dozens of hours of Thief this year for that documentary, it was weird. It was like amazing, like seeing like the door levers are the exact same, like also the like signage of like, oh, you need a key for this one. But my favorite thing is when you kill someone, they like plop down. You can pick up their body and you can throw them in the water, and it's like that exact same move. And it's like, oh, that feels so satisfying. And like I guess like Hitman's the other series where you can do that, but it's like having to be conscious of the bodies and moving them, throwing them, and Metal Gear too. But like they felt very good and quick and snappy.
Yeah, it's good. I was worried that it might be kind of derivative, and I think while there are so many of these notes that we both said that are like reminiscent of these classic games, the thing that I am most like happy about is that it is very much doing its own thing in lots of other ways. Like it doesn't feel like a what would you call it, like a retro game, you know what I mean? Like it has a retro aesthetic, and it's doing a lot of things about those games that we love and we celebrate, you know, like in Black Mesa. Like there's parts of this that felt like Half-Life, where I was like, oh yeah, this is like a Half-Life puzzle. Like that's kind of neat. But it doesn't feel you know, as somebody who has played thousands of hours of those types of games, this feels new and compelling, and I think that's pretty cool. So that's Gloomwood. It's in early access now. 10% off at time of recording. It's $20 normally, 18 at the moment. Yeah, people seem to be digging it, not just me. So go check it out. Apparently, I don't know when it's coming out officially or what the deal is, but we'll let you know when we know. All right, let's leave it there. Let's get on to some emails because we skipped them the past couple of weeks. Podcast@noclip.video if you have any questions for the team. This first one from Mike. I think it's for you, Jeremy, but I'll read it out. Mike here with another game dev related question, but before I get to that, I wanted to thank Jeremy and Jesse for their thoughtful feedback to my question from a few weeks ago regarding how to best utilize my time while learning game dev. Now onto my current dilemma. When I decided to try my hand at game dev, I figured Unity was the obvious choice, as well as it has a wealth of tools, assets, and tutorials to help beginners like myself. Then Unity laid off hundreds of their staff. Also, the Unity CEO and everyone's favorite dirtbag, John Riccatello, fired off some dumb remarks about certain developers being, quote, fucking idiots for not leaning into monetization. We can't forget that Unity will be merging with Iron Source, a company with ties to malware. And then is the super cool move. Unity announced that they would be working closely with the US military. Wow, this is real. Wow, okay. Anything else? Did they shoot your family?
And they killed my mom. And
John Riccatello's not getting a Christmas card from Mike. After all that, the thought of using Unity just felt kind of gross, so I decided to give Godot a try. That said, she's not very good at Palestinians, I think, as well. So that's a reference no one's going to get. That said, I don't disparage anyone for continuing to use Unity since it's such a powerful tool. All this leads to my question. I love that we're getting questions about development, by the way.
Me too.
I am not qualified to answer this at all. Jeremy, I think you are infinitely more qualified than I am anyway.
Which is to say only a little qualified.
But his question was, how do you feel, especially Jeremy, about Unity at the moment? Have you ever abandoned a tool or piece of software for moral reasons? And that one from Mike.
So I am definitely aware of the nefarious behavior of the business side of Unity. I have considered using Godot because it seems like sort of the most ethical choice of the bunch. Unreal also has been used as like for military simulation and stuff like that too. So it's tough to find a game engine company with clean hands.
Actually, to that point, I'm not sure. It's a bit old and maybe a bit old reference now. But for instance, Crytek, they had a huge. I think it was the German or Russian military. I think I think most of their actual revenue at one stage was also from building stuff for. A lot of money in the military-industrial complex.
I was literally just about to say that. There's a lot of money in the military-industrial complex. Apparently there is less so in artsy independent video games. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. There's definitely been times in my life where I've used software that I felt was kind of like morally gray, the company behind it at least. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Adobe necessarily, not because they work with the military. I have mixed feelings about some of their software for the amount I pay for it, but also like I think it's kind of the best tool for the job. So as far as Unity and Unreal and stuff like that, I think Godot is probably a very ethical option. The reason I use Unity is because I don't know anything about game development, and I don't have anyone in my life who is like a good resource for game development. And because Unity is so widely used, it not only does it have like its own internal documentation is really good, but the community around Unity is very robust. So there are a lot of tutorials at every kind of difficulty level. So it was very easy to find beginner tutorials for Unity. There's a great channel called Brackeys that like everyone references.
Brackeys is great.
Yeah. And then in terms of like more intermediate or advanced stuff, it's out there as well. So yeah, I don't know. This sounds like a cop out. This isn't like a no ethical consumption under capitalism argument or anything, but I do think that like I'm not promoting Unity. I'm not like going like Unity's the fucking best, and I'm also not like making any money for them or off of their product. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I drive a Toyota, and Toyota is also like a morally ambiguous company.
It is kind of the problem. It's not to wipe all of our hands clean, whole cloth when it comes to, like you said, being a consumer in capitalism. I can certainly see how, if you're making the tools, especially if you're making a commercial product and there's a decent amount going to that company, I can certainly see how that's definitely more of a moral quandary. But yeah, I feel like when it comes to some of these tools, a lot of us aren't in there's such a monopoly, or at least like hardly any choice for a lot of people, a reasonable choice, that it's hard to blame people for using software that, for instance, like what can we do when it comes to video editing? You know what I mean? Like we either Premiere or Final Cut, pick your poison. And largely you kind of, in our situation, I think Premiere is obviously the sort of, for web stuff is definitely the one to go by, and collaborative and all that. So yeah, I'm not a game dev, but I can certainly empathize with that side of it.
Yeah, like make ethical choices on the services that you pay for and the products that you buy and stuff when you can. But if it's the difference between like learning game dev because you love it or like not learning it, don't make that sacrifice. But like, yeah, if you're just about to start, Godot's a good choice. It's just I don't know how robust the community is for tutorials, but I'm sure it exists and is good.
Right. Andre sends in an email. I recently got back into Titanfall 2 in a big way, as I tend to do with any game that I'm currently playing. I go down a YouTube rabbit hole until my brain is mush. I stumbled across this level design analysis / breakdown of the chapter Effect and Cause. And God, that game level's so good. And also known as that level. And well, while the video is fantastic, I couldn't help but think it would be amazing to hear the story of how it all came together by some of the people that actually worked on the game. Now a number of years after release. My question, if you're at liberty to say and willing to share, of course, have you ever been in talks with Respawn about doing some sort of retrospective? Or is it perhaps like a Valve situation where Titanfall and anything related to Titanfall 3 is this legacy that hangs over their heads that they're not quite ready to talk about? Would love to hear your thoughts. Andre, I cannot tell you how many times I've pitched literally the video you were talking about talking to the people who worked on Effect and Cause. It's one of a couple of levels in that game that I would love to dive into. Effect and Cause being the sort of time travel level where you jump between a past and current version of the level while in combat. It is absolutely insane. It is one of the best modern video game first-person levels of recent memory. It is really something else. It's one of a couple in that game. The one where you're in the IKEA factory for building bases it's just ridiculous. I forget what that one's called. And yeah, we've talked to Respawn a bunch in the past. We actually went in there once and filmed, Jeremy, for the Half-Life documentary. We interviewed Vince Zampella while we were there. We've talked to them in the past about doing stuff on Star Wars as well. I think COVID scuppered a bunch of that stuff back then. I'd love to do something. We know a bunch of the people over there. It's just not happened yet. But yeah, look, to me, I feel like I would love to do something on Titanfall. I don't know if they're working on another Titanfall or, obviously Apex is part of that universe. Whatever they're working on next, if it's any way adjacent to it, if that opens the door a little bit more, we will be sticking our foot in it really quickly. So yeah, I'd love to do it. It's a great idea, and I wish we'd gotten around to it. And then the last question here, this is for the rest of you guys, I think, because I was away for this one. Osmond sends us an email saying, I got into Astroneer. Oh, sorry, this is about early access games you got involved in early. You guys were talking about, remember? I got into Astroneer super early on. They did many changes to unlocks and building throughout the years. Every time I picked it up again to play it, it was like playing a new game, sort of. The same with the corpse mechanisms added to Darkest Dungeon. I know many people hated the change, but for me, it gave it a new challenge. Yeah, the whole idea of games that change. I feel like Rogue Legacy 2 was one of those too. Like that game in early access was very different. Just the base playing, the normal playing of it was so different. Anyone's come in mind for you guys? Obviously, we mentioned Gloomwood was different in the demo. Any other early access games that shifted during your play with them?
Man, part of me wishes I tried Fortnite at the very beginning before they completely diverted to Battle Royale. Because I've tried playing the original Fortnite mode, and oh my gosh, it's so boring.
That's the only one I played.
Yeah.
I played like maybe 10 hours of that and 1 hour of the multiplayer one.
Oh man, I think I played it single player, but now I'm trying to think. But now at PAX, I saw so many early access games. One game I just started playing, I think they say is even an alpha. As you're playing it, is 30XX, which is a sequel to 20XX.
Oh yeah.
I'm so great because I'm now in the mood for rogue. I played so much Rogue Legacy 2. This is the next pickup. So 30XX is a Mega Man X inspired roguelite where you have permanent progression, the art, the music. It's this just feels like playing Mega Man X, but I feel like I can beat it because you have upgrades. But that's an early access, so that might be a game I actually check out and play. That I feel like once I get the Steam Deck, I'll have a lot more because it's kind of the same thing. I don't really enjoy playing PC games much because that's what I do for Noclip or streaming sometimes. So I'm ugh. But if I have a Steam Deck, I can be on the couch in a different room. Yeah. I feel like I'll play a lot more Steam games.
Dude, yeah. I have played 18 hours of Cult of the Lamb.
Nice.
I finished that game after 11 or 12. Because it's so the Steam Deck is so good at doing that. Just there's certain games that I would never sit at a PC and play that long. Cult of the Lamb, I just couldn't do it. But on that, and Rogue Legacy 2 is another one. I've played 15 hours of Rogue Legacy 2 on that, and to me, I always had trouble sitting down at a PC playing those types of games. So yeah, I'm right there with you. All right, I think that's a pod for the week, gentlemen. We need to have a break because there's a playtest for our game in 50 minutes if you guys are able to come.
Absolutely.
We're going to play some Stunt Derby over on because Alex is away this weekend or this Friday, so we're doing it a little bit earlier this week. Check out our videos, our documentary on Rogue Legacy 2. The little video on Stunt Derby went up on Noclip Crew. We will also have news about the Hades Blu-ray very soon. It's happening. It'll be coming very soon. They will be selling it. I can't say. I'm not sure if I can say where. We won't be selling it. It's being sold somewhere. But we'll put up a trailer. We're going to try and get a little window for patrons to get it early. It's a slight edits from the YouTube version. It's a director's cut, technically, I guess. It'll have a little booklet with a note from myself and from Greg Kasavin, of course. Gen Z did a bunch of artwork for it. It's a beautiful package, so we're excited to get it out. It's on 2 discs, a 2-disc Blu-ray with all 6 episodes, and it'll be a pretty limited run, we reckon, so get in early if you're interested in that. But yeah, we'll have details on that. We'll put up a trailer up on the regular YouTube channel, and we'll be tweeting about it and stuff once we have final details, but they're basically doing, I think, production run at the moment, or for the demo, anyway, it's soon, like next couple of weeks, basically. So keep your eyes peeled for that. If you'd like to support the podcast, fund our documentaries, and get access to all our bonus episodes, the official Discord, and more, go over to patreon.com/Noclip. We're at Noclip Video on lots of the social stuff. At Daniel Dwyer on Twitter, at Frank Howley, at Jeremy B. Jane, at Garasha. Hope Jesse's having a great vacation. He's got a couple of them this month, so excited for him after working so hard all summer. Watch our docs over at youtube.com/Noclip Video, and review the podcast if you want. If you're interested, if you like the podcast, go review it. Jeremy, what are you playing for the rest of the week?
I don't know. I might go back into Immortality. I beat it, but there might be some lingering things that I want to figure out. And then, I'm finishing up some color for a project today. Got to put the finishing touch on it, and then we'll see what the next game is. I'm probably gonna get Gloomwood, honestly.
Nice, yeah, check it out. And it's Crystal Dynamics. I know, and everyone on this here is always worried in case I'm not, because they don't know if I've said if it's okay to talk about something yet. So I'm always conscious of that. I like you guys erring on the side of caution. But we have our Crystal Dynamics in-person stuff we filmed 2 months ago, so we'll be getting that. I've been editing away here on that. It probably looks like we're gonna have a doc on Crystal Dynamics, a doc on Tomb Raider, and then the Legacy of Kain greatest hits are going to come out of that. And the other greatest hits on Black and White, I got some very good news about somebody who's going to talk to us. Somebody important who was part of Lionhead. He was very excited to hear we're doing it, and I'm talking to him next week is the plan. So awesome. That should be pretty cool.
That's so exciting.
Yeah. Frank, what are you playing for the rest of your week?
Yeah, I think Gloomwood for sure. Like, I'm so excited to finally play that. I think 30XX, I played a little bit. I'm like, this will be a good game to chill out with. I think Infernax, that game from Game Pass. And then, and then on my own, I'm excited to keep editing this PAX footage and see what magic comes up. Like, I think we talked about it, but I watched so much How To with John Wilson over the past few months. That's like, it'll be a very open homage. Like, I feel like that's the best documentary style. And I feel like I got so many like John Wilson moments of just weird B-roll at this con. So yeah, I'm excited to put it together. And I'm excited in like 30 minutes to play Stunt Derby. Check it out. Wishlist it on Steam.
Wishlist us on Steam. If you go to tinyurl.com/stuntderby, you will go straight to our Steam page. I feel like we just did like a little swap meet, because I'm going to play more Gloomwood, but also I'm going to check out Immortality and The Case of the Golden Idol. So nice. There's loads there. Thanks so much.
When you play Immortality, I just need to talk to you about it. That's all I'm going to say.
For sure. Yeah, we might. I'll see if I can get a decent amount played for next week. Oh, what's Frank?
I just remembered this weekend I'm having a big old Splatfest.
What, excuse me?
Splatoon, guys.
What did you eat?
Splatfest is happening. Splatoon 3 comes out Friday.
Oh, it is.
I
forgot.
totally forgot. I'm gonna have a Splatfest. Oh, I can't wait.
Wow. Squid and a kid.
Amazing. Yeah, make sure the blinds are closed when you're doing that, Frank. You don't want to get kicked out of your home. Thanks so much for everyone for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you next week. Take care.